So then, it's the turn of the Boston Uprising in our team previews for the 2021 season of the Overwatch League. Boston Uprising is the first team we have actually stuff to go off of in this off-season, as they took part in the Steel Series Invitational the other day. So we do have a little bit of information regarding this new roster, and Boston, they're a team with a troubled history, let's put it that way. They did quite well in the inaugural season, getting a third place. They were actually a pretty strong team, but they did get marred by some player issues, should we put it that way, in both that season and the season after. They only achieved 19th place in the second season of the Overwatch League, and, well, last season they came bottom of the standings, and, yeah, didn't look particularly great, did they? Boston, they've never really been able to reach that inaugural season form. They never really have been, and they've been a team to create some talent. Last year we saw it with Jerry and people like that. They see talent and then it ends up being sold on. Jerry now at the Washington Justice, and it just, Boston always seem to be left in this exact same situation where they're a bottom of the league team, not doing anything, and we're like, Boston, come on guys, let's get forward. But this year it could be different, because this is not a bad looking roster from the Boston Uprising compared to what we've seen in the previous 2 years. So, let's get into that roster. First of all, we're going to look at the coaching of the Boston Uprising actually, because that's where you've seen possibly the biggest change. So this is OWLRU coming in as head coach of the Boston Uprising. He was head coach of WGS Phoenix last year, and WGS Phoenix won Korean Contenders Season 2. So OWLRU comes in with a substantial CV, shall we put it that way. Although OWLRU will still be working alongside some interesting other people. So we still have Mineral as manager and Sealwolf as team manager, and they're also bringing in they've still got Ascroft as the assistant coach, who's French, and then they're bringing in Baroy, who's a German assistant coach. So a very varied coaching staff there, very varied. I think we can put that lightly, and it'll be interesting to see how that one works out. Brave stuff from Boston, not going to lie. And it'll be interesting to see how that all kind of knits in together, should we say. But let's get on to the actual roster. And retained, we do have a few people. So Color Hex, still there after joining in 2018, same with Fusions on that main tank. Myung Bong, after coming in 2019, will also still be there. Punk came in midway through 2020. He'll be still there as well. But then we bring in these new signings for the Boston Uprising. So they're only retaining 4 from the previous season, and they're bringing in 5 new players. I'm37 will be coming in from technically the Uprising Academy, but he was on loan at WGS Phoenix for the second season of Korean Contenders, where he won the Korean Contenders with OWLRU. So it makes sense that I'm37 got that promotion to the Uprising. And then we see Stand 1 coming in from the Shanghai Dragons. He was pretty much backup main tank for the Shanghai Dragons last season, behind Fearless. Stand 1 is not a bad main tank. Not the best, but not bad. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad pickup from the Boston Uprising. Then we see Soon coming in from the Paris Eternal. Soon, he's the outlier in these because he's the only one that isn't Korean, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. And Boston definitely going down a more Korean route with this roster this year, especially considering the movement of the Uprising Academy, their academy team, to Korea. So, yeah, Boston definitely making changes. Soon is a good signing. He is consistent, although he is nearer the end of his career. He still has great pop-off potential. And then we see the latest signings. So these actually came in this year instead of coming in at the end of 2020. And this is Faith and Valentine. Both of these will be coming in from WGS Phoenix, more influence from OWLRU there. And I think that's 2 quite essential signings. Very essential signings, actually, because it covers the, perhaps, pitfalls of Color Hex, and it also covers that main support slot that they didn't have filled for so long. And I don't dislike this Boston Uprising side. I don't think it's bad. I also don't think it's mega good, but I don't think it's bad. So let's take a look at these then. First of all, Color Hex. Well, Color Hex has not been the greatest of players, let's put it that way, but we did get to see a little bit of Color Hex in the Steel Series Invitational, and with him being able to specialise more on a certain hero or certain group of heroes with Valentine coming in, I think that will help Color Hex no end. Because he won't have to be this super mega flex player. Because it's better to be a complete master of a few heroes rather than being just good at all of them. Because being just good in the Overwatch League very often isn't enough. You have to master. And that could allow Color Hex to be... It means he won't play as much, but when he does play, he won't be a ball and chain on the ankle of the Boston Uprising, dragging them down. He will be able to keep up, and he will be able to keep this team running forward, which I think will be incredibly valuable. And I think that was evident in the Steel Series Invitational, where he wasn't completely outplayed, which I expected him to be. So I think Color Hex has made progress in this whole season, which is promising. Fusions... Fusions, I think, is stuck in the UK right now due to COVID restrictions, so that's not great, let's be honest. I probably won't see him at the start of the season, but Fusions is a great main tank in the right meta. So if you're in a Rhine meta, Fusions is going to be your man, dude. He's going to be swinging his Reinhardt hammer around, and he's going to be pretty good. When it moves more to an Orisa or a Bull, Fusions is not going to be there, and I think that's the reason that Stand 1 has been recruited by the Uprising. With the way in which the meta is going, it's more divey at the moment, but also seeing more Brawl. If the meta goes more to the EU Brawl, which we're seeing Rhine Diva, then I think we will see much more Fusions. Whereas if we see more of the dive, more of the Winston, more of the Bull, I think we'll see more of Stand 1. So Fusions is a meta-dependent main tank, I think, and also possibly a map-dependent main tank on whatever the Boston Uprising want to run. We didn't see Fusions in the Steel Series Invitational because, as I said, he was still in the UK due to COVID restrictions. Myung Bong on the flex support. One of the shining lights of the Boston Uprising last season. He was definitely a great player, and I was worried that the Boston Uprising wouldn't be able to keep hold of him. However, they have done that, and I think that's crucial to any success they might have in 2021. Myung Bong is a great flex support, and I think he's better than a lot of the flex supports you would look at above them in the league of last year. So when you look at last year's league, going on their rosters of that year as well, when you look at Fuel, Chengdu, Toronto, Houston, London, Vancouver, Washington, even Atlanta, that's all the way up to 12th, above Boston. I think Myung Bong is better than all of those flex supports in those teams. So, I mean, that's my opinion. But other parts of the Boston Uprising really cost them. So it ended up Boston being bottom of the league, but I don't think that was Myung Bong's fault. And with better players around him, I think Myung Bong will be even better this season. So, I think Myung Bong is a very solid flex support. He's not one of the best flex supports in the league. Flex support is stacked. But he's definitely good enough for the Boston Uprising. Definitely good enough. And then we come to Punk, the off-tank. One of the surprising retainers, in my opinion. I didn't think they would retain Punk, especially when they managed to secure the services of Gabe Woolsey to the Uprising Academy. I kind of wanted to see him promoted to the Boston Uprising and Punk demoted to the Uprising Academy. Punk is not bad, but he's also not brilliant. It'll be a very telling season. He must have a good season, Punk. He must have a good season, otherwise this will be his last season at Boston. Or it has to be his last season anyway. Especially with Gabriel C now breathing down his neck. And I think there's a scope for Boston Uprising to promote Gabriel C if they wanted to, and I'm surprised he's not on a two-way contract. Punk, he's okay. But he's not. I don't think he's good enough. I honestly think Adam would have been better, but the Valiant kind of dumped on him. So when I look at Punk, he does remind me of a bottom half of the league off tank. And so that's not great for Boston. However, I'd like to see him prove me wrong. And I think there is a very good player in Punk. It just hasn't come out yet. And I don't know whether the coaching of the Boston Uprising is going to bring that out. So again, that's one we have to wait and see. So now we get to the new additions. I'm 37. He had a stint in the league. He was the speedrunner of the league, getting into the Toronto Defiant in about 30 days, was it? Something like that. After being a ladder player. I'm 37. he wasn't massively fantastic at Toronto. And the main reason for that is because he wasn't used to team environments, right? He'd come from ladder. Now, Jonak is another example of this, and he adjusted very well in the NYXL. I'm37 wasn't the same. So I'm37 drops out of the league. He then goes to a bunch of contenders teams, including Uprising Academy and then WGS, learns his craft, playing in a proper team environment, and now comes back to Boston. I think I'm37 could be possibly better than Jerry. I'm not going to lie. And from what I saw in the Steel Series Invitational, again, take it with a pinch of salt, it's an off-season invitational, but from what I saw in the Steel Series Invitational, I'm37 looked good on the hit scan. He did like to play a little bit more McCree than I would want, but McCree in EU Brawl's pretty good right now. So, but the problem is Boston didn't play EU Brawl. So, yeah, again, there's a give and take. But I'm37 is not a bad pickup by any means, and is definitely a suitable replacement for Jerry, and possibly even better than Jerry. I'm37, I'm almost certain will be better than his last appearance in the league, just because of his ability to play in a team environment better than before. And it could work. And he'll know Laurie very well. So, and he should be able to work with Faith and Valentine well. I think it could work for Boston Uprising with I'm37 in that role. And I think that also means that we're going to see limited playtime for Soon. And anyway, we'll move on to Soon in a minute because we're going to talk about Stand 1 now. Stand 1. Plenty of league experience. He's the only player coming in with substantial league experience apart from Soon. And Stand 1, again, it's going to be a very similar thing to Fusions in my opinion. If they want to play ball, he's definitely going to be by far the best ball on this team because Fusions' Wrecking Ball is not great. And when it comes to Orisa, he's going to be the Orisa player. And he wasn't a bad Orisa on Shanghai Dragons either. But when it comes to Reinhardt, I think Fusions is definitely better. When it comes to Winston, I think it's much more harder to call. But I have a feeling that Stand 1 will be the main tank of choice for most of the time in this season for the Uprising. I have that feeling, especially because Laurie's head coach. I think it's going to be better synergy-wise. But do I agree with that? Depends on the meta. As I said, like, if it's EU Brawl, if it's this Brawl comp that's going around the place at the moment, and... Okay, so the perfect example was when they were playing London. No, they were playing Paris, my bad. When they were playing Paris in the Invitational, they were playing King's Row. And they were playing a Bull Dive comp, and Paris were playing EU Brawl. And Dan on the Paris Eternal was having the time of his life playing Reinhardt, because he had free reign, and he had no one to keep him in check. And I think that's where they really lacked Fusions. Now, they didn't have the opportunity to play Fusions, but why didn't Stand 1 match the Reinhardt? He didn't seem to want to. And I'm wondering whether that's because they are putting all of their eggs in one basket, as when they want to play Reinhardt, Fusions will be the main tank of choice. So I can see a situation much like maybe similar to the Shock, where when they want to play a bunch of Reinhardt, they sub Super in. I can see that with Boston Uprising. When they want to play a bunch of Reinhardt, they sub Fusions in. But that's the only time they're ever going to use Fusions. So, is that great? I don't know. Is Stand 1 going to be essential to the Boston Uprising, and if he's subbed out, they don't work? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one to see how that works out. But Stand 1, I think, will be the main tank of choice for the Boston Uprising in this coming season. Soon. Great hit scan player, right? And I think he's going to be very essential in a double hit scan meta, and I think he's going to be very essential when they want to play something like a Tracer. I think he will be a weapon of choice over I'm37 when it comes to a Tracer or something like that. It heavily depends on where the meta goes, obviously. Soon is still a good player. I still don't think he's going to get a massive amount of playtime. Again, meta dependent, as I said. But I think he's also going to be a very valuable part of this team. And the reason I say that is because he spent a season on the Paris Eternal in a mixed Korean-French roster, which is going to be massive in terms of knitting this team together.
And I think that is a big part to play here for Soon. This is, you've got Faith, Valentine, who probably don't know much English because they're coming in from WGS Phoenix. Soon probably knows a bunch of Korean now because he's been on the Paris Eternal last year. So I think he's going to be a valuable part to knit this team together, to bring those two new and experienced Overwatch League players into the fray at the Boston Uprising. So I think Soon has that sort of part to play as well as his mechanical and obviously team play when he plays on the team, which I don't think he will play as much as I'm 37. I'm not going to lie. So then we have Faith on the main support. Faith is an interesting one because obviously he's another recruit from WGS Phoenix. Faith, I think he will be decent. I don't think he's going to be one of the best main supports in the league, that's for sure. He spent time at things like global esports. So he ended up really starting his career more getting noticed more in the Pacific region rather than the Korean region. And that's kind of odd. And global esports, they ended up having Carefree at one point. They weren't the best team in that region. Very often, they weren't right up there. They could not compete with the likes of Talon Esports back in the day when Talon Esports were in the Pacific region and when the Pacific region actually existed. But when he moved back to Korea, got signed with WGS Chick, and then got promoted to WGS Phoenix, that's when things started to go right. And that's when he started to really prove how good he could be. He did spend some time in China a little bit as well with I think it was a Phantom Wizard. I think it was Phantom Wizard, something like that, or Big Time Regal Gaming. No, it was Big Time Regal Gaming. He did okay there, but it's really WGS Phoenix that have realised his potential. But it's only been in one season of Korean Contenders. One season where they beat Runaway 4-3 in the finals and won the Contenders. When it came to the NetEase esports tournament, they lost to Bilibili Gaming. When it came to the Gauntlet, they kind of got trashed by Element Mystic. And Element Mystic had not had a great contender season just a couple of months before. So WGS Phoenix, although they did win Contenders 2020 Season 2 in Korea, they did fall off afterwards. And it'll be interesting to see if they can regain the form of their Contender Season 2 season or keep going on that downward spiral. And that will be very, very impactful on Boston Uprising season. However, I do think it's better than what they had before, i.e. Halo. Yeah, definitely an upgrade. Without a doubt, definitely an upgrade. And, Jerry and Axiom was pretty inactive last season as well. Bruson, again, we're seeing an upgrade come in, and Punk in the mid-season of last season. Mikey's now gone on the tank as well, didn't really feature. So, yeah, a lot of changes for Uprising, but I think they're, all in all, upgrades. All in all, upgrades for the Uprising. And then lastly, we have Valentine. Same situation pretty much as Faith, a little bit younger, still only 18. Flex DPS. The big thing for Valentine is that he's taking the pressure off of Color Hex, as I mentioned earlier. And I think Color Hex was asked to do way too much last season, and therefore looked trash on everything. Yeah. The thing is with this, is we saw him in the Steel Series Invitational forcing way too much Genji, and that worries me. And hopefully that gets ironed out in time with coaching, because if he tries to force the Genji like he did against Paris in King's Row, oh no, please don't do that. Don't do that. That's not nice. But he did have a very good Echo. His Echo looked pretty darn good. I cannot take that away from him. So for me, the jury is still out on Valentine right now. But anyway, let's move on to the fixtures we will see them take part in this early part of the season. It's not going to be easy for the Uprising. So their first game of the season will be against the Los Angeles Gladiators. That is not easy. I would expect the Gladiators to win that. And then they go into the second game of the season against Dallas Fuel. Again, that should be a win for Dallas Fuel. It's going to be a rough start to the season for Boston, because then they've got to go into their third match against Washington Justice. I think the Washington Justice will win that, because I think the Washington Justice have incredible tank players. We've seen that in a scrim recently against the Seoul Dynasty, where they won that scrim. And yeah, rough. Then they go into a game against London, though, in their fourth game of the season, and that is where Boston needs to start winning. And if London managed to beat Boston, there's something we did not see in the Steel Series Invitational, even though both teams were there. But on the looks of the results, the way in which London took Gladiators so close, the way in which Paris took Boston so close, London could be favourites going into that one. So that is worrying. Boston have to win against London Spitfire if they want to do anything this season, basically. Especially if you're going on and judging on the early parts of the season. Then they go up against Toronto. Toronto should have too much for the Boston Uprising, unless OWLRU really gets his team popping off. Toronto have got better supports, in my opinion. They've got better tanks, in my opinion. And DPS is probably even. Not gonna lie. Boston Uprising have some good DPS, some unproven with nice and stuff like that. Toronto, I should say, have proven and unproven in their DPS, so it's a difficult one to call on that one. And then they're back around to the Washington Justice, which is not going to be easy either. So it's a rough start to the season for Boston, but they do have that instant possibility of getting revenge against the Gladiators, in which they got 3-0'd by the Gladiators in the Steel Series Invitational Final. So they do have that opportunity to clap back, and if they can take the Gladiators close in an official Overwatch League match, then it's promising for Boston. But it's going to be a teller, very big teller, because we could see Boston go 0-6 in the first few games of the season, or we could see them go 2-6, which 2-4, which wouldn't be that necessarily bad, because that'd be wins against at least London and Toronto or something like that, which would be good. But if they go 0-6, then we're starting to worry. And I don't trust this setup in the staff of the Boston Uprising. It's so all over the place. Mineral still as manager, I don't know where it's going. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it could be a rough start to the season for the Boston Uprising. Could take time for them to grow into the league, that's for sure. But that is going to be it for this one. Whew, we're really starting to get into this, and now next video will be us moving over to the East region for the first time, because in alphabetical order, next up will be Chengdu Hunters. And Chengdu Hunters have a lot of blooming players. I don't know whether you've noticed. 12-man roster, and I tell you what, it's a stacked roster, young and full of potential. Chengdu Hunters could be a very interesting team this season. But I will be leaving it here for this one. All of the socials are linked in the video description as per usual, including the socials all to Illusion Gaming and myself, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all sorts of things. I don't know. They're all down there. Just take a look and click on them and just do a follow or something like that and things like that. And yeah. Anyway, there's a Discord server. Discord, that's what I was trying to think of. Discord. Make sure you join a Discord, because I'm always on there. And you can always contact me on there if you have anything to say about my videos, because they're trash. Smile. Anyway, make sure to keep the discussion up on Discord and in the comments below, because damn, it's real interesting to see all you guys' opinion on this 2021 season of the Overwatch League. It's going to be super interesting, but next up will be Chengdu Hunters. I'm looking forward to that one. But for now, thank you guys so much for this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.